Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Let's go, Giants! With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is TortureCast. Standing on top, not gonna stop. We came to play. Ain't slowing down. Falling on, we're here to stay. And we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Friday, January 24th, 2020. And this is episode 188 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of your San Francisco Giants. Happy New Year. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me as always is Eric Nathanson. What's up, man? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. 2020. It's really weird. It's so easy to type on the keyboard, so I do like that aspect of it. We're in a new decade. Like, I don't know about you, but like 2000, I know as Giants fans, I think more so than other sports fans, we kind of have a separation on the first decade and the second decade in the 2000s. But like on the overall whole, kind of just meshed together, 2000 to 2019. I feel like now that we're in a defined decade, we're going to start seeing and having those memorable things. You look back at the 19th century, the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, they were all distinctly different. I feel like the last 20 years kind of meshed together, and I think now we got a chance, 2020. I'm hopeful that we have like a new decade springing into action, giving us some all sorts of like new stuff, maybe a new roaring 20s, but it's fun to have 2020. It's nice to have a nice round number. So happy New Year. I'm glad to be back. We're talking, there's all sorts of sports that's happened. Your Niners are in the Super Bowl, just like tons of things going on right now. 18 days till pitchers and catchers, 62 days till opening day. We're getting ready to go. Our first show of 2020, it should be fun. Hopefully we'll have a lot of good Giants stuff to talk about this year.
Yeah, it's been 2 months since we recorded. It was the end of November was our last show. Of course, we said we'd be back for big news, and we have a lot of news to talk about today. But, this is typical of the hot stove season. We've been busy, but we're back. It's interesting you said, like, you can think of, the 20th century, right? The 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. You think of like, the 20s, the roaring 20s and girls doing the Charleston and, the 30s and Prohibition and stuff like that. 40s with the music and the cars, 50s with the muscle cars and the James Dean and all that. 60s, peace, love, happiness. 70s, yeah. I mean, you're right. 80s, of course, we grew up in. Distinct with the music and the clothes that
the clothing, right?
The fallback, the throwback parties, and the 90s again, same thing with the clothing, the grunge, all that stuff, the
music shift,
internet, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to 2000 and the 2010s, and I don't think of them. I mean, certainly they're different in terms of technology and the internet and these things, but as far as like a defining cultural dividing line between the two decades, I don't like. Eric, dress as you would in the 2000s or dress as you would in the 2010s. Like I
feel like I am.
Yeah, I guess maybe there's just not enough separation, but I also feel like in the year 2000 there was a distinct difference between the 90s and the 80s. So I don't know. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, because even if you think back 20th century, the teens had World War I, so there was defining moments that happened during that time. And I know we had 9/11, but that was at the beginning of the 21st century. That was in 2001. We were barely in to the new century. I used the phrase the other night, totally non-ironically, to my wife. I said, at the turn of the century, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, my God. I can't believe I just said that. And I can't believe the context was correct because the turn of the century is 20 years ago. Like it's hard to fathom that 1990 is as far away as 2050. Yes. It really is. And I think that's why. I think had 2010 felt like more of a dividing, we all would have felt like certain markers were hit. And we just kind of don't. It was just kind of a mishmash together. So I'm hoping we get some definition. I know with the Giants we will, because we had Bochy for the entire 2010s, and now we have Gabe Kapler and a Farhan Zaidi and a new era.
Yeah, and MLB.com did, of course, announce, and it was no surprise, the Giants were the team of the decade for winning their 3 World Series. Social media, they put it out for a vote. And, of course, I'd say even a fair majority of non-Giants fans were like, look, I love my Red Sox, but Giants won 3. How can you argue with that, right? But there were people going, like, there were some Cubs fans, Eric.
Yeah, it's Cubs fans.
Super passionate, which I respect. But they're like, no, man, once you end a curse of 98 years or whatever, man, that deserves being the team of the decade. And people are like, dude, they won 1. The Giants won 3. Like, just because they hadn't won one in 98 doesn't mean that's why they're the team of the decade. Anyway, it was really interesting to see the passionate difference.
Cubs social media has been a mess this offseason. They don't have anything to focus on because that team hasn't done a damn thing. Like, our team has done 1,000 more things than they have.
Well, I think everyone thought the Cubs were going to be the next Giants.
I
agree. They were
agree.
going to win 3 out of 5 because that's the trajectory they were on, and they haven't. They've totally just...
No, it's the Astros, and we'll get to that later on. We'll talk about the cheating, but it was the Astros that turned into the quote-unquote team of the decade towards the end of the decade. And as has been pointed out, like all those teams leading back, there's no managers left with the teams that won the World Series over the last recent times.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely unbelievable to see what's happened. But we'll get to that later. Let's get into more fun stuff right now. Like, your 49ers are in the Super Bowl. Like, you got to be excited about that. Like, I can't even imagine. We were texting the other night. I can't even imagine being an adult right now and seeing my team playing for a Super Bowl. I mean, what's the feeling like? What's the buzz with fans?
Well, it's crazy because I'm 46, so I know some of our listeners are older, but many of our listeners are a little bit younger. So you have to understand, I was, like 8 years old when the Niners won their first Super Bowl, but I was, in the room with my parents and their friends. They had a party, much like we have parties now, watching it as a kid and going, wow, this is really cool. And then, of course, spoiled throughout the entire decade of the 80s and then into the mid-90s. The Niners were good every single year, even if they didn't win the Super Bowl. They lost many NFC championships, by the way, including some heartbreakers, right? I mean, if things went a little bit better for the Niners in conference championship games, they could be sitting on 7 or 8 Super Bowl rings right now. But so I was always spoiled as a kid growing up, going, the Niners are the best, they're the best. The DeBartolos had an open checkbook. There was no salary cap. They just signed everybody, It was great. And then, of course, the late 90s hit and the early 2000s. And really, for the last 20, 15 years, the Niners have not been very good, except for, some Harbaugh years. They did make the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. And, they had those, Frank Gore ran down to the 5 on first down. And then they had 3 downs from the 5-yard line to win that freaking Super Bowl against the Ravens. And the other thing you have to understand as a 49ers fan is that even though I'm a very empirical, logical, left-brain kind of person, I'm sitting there going, the major comeback already happened with the lights going out and them roaring back in the Superdome. They are 5-0 in Super Bowls. This is destiny. Once Frank Gore made that rundown, I was like, that's it. They are winning this game. I'm always like, when the Giants were winning World Series, I still was like, oh my God, they might lose this game. Like, I always have this total skeptical attitude in the moment. That one, I was like, oh, they're scoring here. I mean, this is destiny. They're going to be 6-0 in Super Bowls. And then it was pass to Crabtree, pass to Crabtree, pass to Crabtree, and just incomplete, and they lose the Super Bowl. And that was like just such a shock to the system of like, oh, yeah, they're not immortal in the Super Bowl. And obviously they've struggled the last, 5-6 years. So the energy around the Bay Area is incredible because the Niners won 4 games last year.
Yeah.
And in the Super Bowl this year, I mean, even the best case scenario predictors thought maybe they would win 10 games this year. And I thought those people were smoking crack. I was like 500 if they overachieve, right? 8-8. Definitely won't make the playoffs. And here we are, not only being the number 1 seed, 13 wins. The 3 losses were all in the last play of the game.
Oh my God, yeah. Like,
right?
they were not blown out once all year.
Not once all year long. And in fact, Jimmy G is 23-5 as a starter, right? Out of those 5 losses, 4 of them are by 1 score or less than 1 score. The only one that was more than 1 score was 11 points to the Chiefs at Arrowhead after he blew his ACL. So he was out of the game already. So as far as games he's like started and completed, he's never lost a game by more than 1 score. So the Niners have obviously drafted well. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius, and Lynch and and company came in and have just been drafting well. And despite all of that, obviously they could lose this Super Bowl. Now I'm going to be very nervous, like I was during the 2 playoff games, even though they handled the Vikings and the Packers pretty well. This is something that was so unexpected, and I'm looking at Farhan Zaidi, and I'm like, you taking notes? I mean, what a quick turnaround. No, I mean, the Niners, it's like, okay, in 2 or 3 years, maybe they'll be better. It's like, oh, the next freaking year they're in the Super Bowl. They might win this thing. You never know. So with the Giants, boy, are they turning over the roster, and you're hoping there's aspirations in there. Now, of course, I don't think anyone, even Zaidi himself, thinks that they're going to be winning 85 games this year.
I mean, you can't run an offense. Like, Shanahan's got a system that would work with any players that were semi-talented, you know. I mean, Mostert running for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the guy's got a good burst. You know, his thing is, you know, he puts his foot in the ground and he goes, and it works well in Shanahan's system, getting through the gap and in the running games with the different, we see it with the counter on the 3rd and 8 play and things like that. The Giants, they can't like install an offense that is conducive to, you know, their playmakers and things like that, like Shanahan's been able to do.
This play call calls for a 3-run home run. You know,
right.
Like, that doesn't happen.
All the play calls call for a 3-run home run.
Did you see that clip from NFL Films of Shanahan against the Packers? He's standing on the sidelines, and the camera's right behind him, and he's talking to the ref right there, the line judge, and he's all, "Hey, our guy's gonna be, you know, breaking." He's on number 85. Obviously, he's talking about Kittle. He's gonna be breaking left. He's gonna not let him separate. Watch it. So you see Kittle, you know, and the guy kind of just goes, whatever. And so the play starts, and of course that's the play that Kittle was held, trying to go outside.
You can see it too when the camera pans to Kittle. He gets awesome. Held. It pans back to the ref. It was almost like it was planned out. Yeah, it was Inside the NFL had that on their highlights.
Oh, that was awesome.
I like rarely watch Inside the NFL, but we have Showtime right now because my wife loves Shameless. I do too. I haven't caught up on it, so I watched Inside the NFL, and it was funny because I got into an argument with somebody because I was watching Patrick Mahomes highlights, and I'm like, man, this guy could be the best quarterback I've ever seen. He could go down as the greatest ever. He really could. And immediately I got a friggin' Patriots and Brady backer in my, you know, he can't be the best until this, and this. I'm like, you know, relax, man. I'm just watching tape. Yeah. You know, like I'm not like saying Patrick Mahomes is going to win 10 world Super Bowls. It's like calm the F down. Like everybody's so reactive nowadays.
It's conversation, exactly.
Right. It's like settle down, man. Settle down. The Niners, I was rooting for your Niners as a Bears fan. Y'all know I grew up in Chicago area, and I am Chicago sports, all except baseball. Lucky you. And you know, as a Bears fan, I was all in on the Niners beating the Packers because F the Packers. And it was fantastic to watch them go down in flames. And Rodgers did not play well, which makes it even sweeter because F the Packers. And it was nice. But I don't know if I'm going to be rooting for your team Super Bowl Sunday. As a Bears fan, you guys killed us in 88. 84, you also beat us on your way through, but 84 was like really nothing. It was a 23-0 game. It wasn't even close. 88 was in our house in the freezing cold, and you guys beat us. It was very frustrating as a kid growing up. The Niners were in the Bears' way a couple times. But on the flip side, those 88 Niners made me my first ever money on a sports bet. Because I bet a kid at school on Niners Bengals, and he was all enamored with the Icky Shuffle, and I was like, nah, the Niners are too good. And so Joe Montana led that drive and hit John Taylor. I was like, yeah, you know, first ever cash. Yeah, first ever cash.
All right, so this is impromptu. This was not planned. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me a score.
Oh, crap.
No money on the line, though.
Chiefs 38, Niners 34.
All right, 38-34 Chiefs.
We should do an MVP. We should do an MVP as well then.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a relatively high-scoring game. I know the over/under is 52, I believe. The Chiefs are favored by a point and a half, depending on the line.
I can't believe they're favored. Like, this is a pick'em if I've ever seen one.
I thought it was a pick'em, too. I totally felt like this is a pick'em. I was surprised the early line was Chiefs. But you know what? I think it's because of Mahomes. He's just such a national celebrity. And Jimmy G is a well above average quarterback. He has the highest rating when their team is down. He was in the top 10 in every offensive category, but he doesn't have the Hollywood that Mahomes has. And I just think the public puts too much emphasis on just the quarterback. Yes, he is the most important position out there. I get it. But at the same time, the Niners have not won with just Jimmy G. I mean, he's won games for them. He had a shootout in New Orleans. He's thrown 4 touchdowns 3 times this year. But they've also won in sloppy games in Washington, defensive struggles, they've
They
won
were
in every
that game in
capacity.
Baltimore.
The Chiefs aren't winning by defense. So I think there needs to be a lot more emphasis on how good the Niners defense is. And in fact, they look back, and when a top 5 defense faces a top 5 offense in the Super Bowl, the defensive team has won 15 out of 20 Super Bowls. So I was surprised at that line. But hey, Mahomes definitely could single-handedly win the game. There's no doubt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He'd be my MVP if the Chiefs win. I just think it's a natural connection. It's such a natural connection. The betting line is like minus 1,200. It's like not even worth it. It's ridiculous. Somebody like Jimmy G, though, is going off at like 15-1 to win the MVP. Are you picking the Niners? Are you picking the – there you go.
I'm a 49er fan, and every single game I doubt they win. Every single game I doubt they win. And again, the 3 losses were in overtime, the last second field goal, or the last second touchdown by Atlanta, which was one of those letdown games because they came off of the Saints game. And it was like, oh, this is going to be a letdown game, and it was. This, obviously, Super Bowl's never a, quote, letdown game. And so, I just, every time I doubt them, they prove me wrong. So I got to go with the hot hand. They're both hot. But
yeah, they are. That's the thing.
I got to say. The defense is so good. But
they're healthy too now, finally.
They're 100% on defense. And they have done okay against running quarterbacks, but they have struggled. I mean, they are the hardest ones to contain, obviously, for obvious reasons. Every team has a struggle against them. But, Russell Wilson, they lost 8 games in a row to Seattle before they finally won that last game, Week 17, by an inch, by the way, tackling Hollister at the goal line. They struggled against, what's-his-face from Arizona, the quarterback there, even though they won both games. Murray, thank you. And they struggled against Lamar Jackson, although Lamar Jackson ended up not having that great of a game, and it ended up being a shootout. And, of course, the Ravens won in overtime, and the Niners could have won that game easily. So, they've done okay against those teams, but it's the pocket passers like your Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers that they just decimate.
Oh my God, they tee off. The front 4 gets in there so fast compared to every other team. I tell you what, I've watched pretty much all the Niners games this year. I watched Red Zone when it's not the Bears, and they cut to the Niners a ton. I've thought your team is good from the jump. Right from the first and second week, I was like, oh, this Niners team could just go all the way. Jimmy G is he only threw 8 times because they only needed him to. It was not because they were keeping him away from doing anything. It was just the game plan. It has nothing to do with it. I think he's absolutely got
9 yards every single freaking handoff. Why would you do that?
Yeah, you're gaining yardage. You're getting close to the goal line. You're ticking time off the clock. It's all positives. You absolutely want to do that. Jimmy G, by the way, grew up a couple towns over from where I grew up. He grew up in Rolling Meadows. I grew up in Buffalo Grove, Long Grove area, so just a couple towns over, like Wheeling, Arlington Heights are in between us. I played his high school. We're not the same age, so it was obviously years before that, but I played his high school in sports out of conference, so it wasn't the same conference. But yeah, he grew up there, went to Eastern Illinois. I like your Niners. I do. I think your Niners are a great team. I love Shanahan's offense. I love how he uses the motion and the misdirection. And Debo has absolutely stepped up. It's just it's hard for me. Like, you're right, the quarterback, they're weighing heavily on the quarterback, and that's why I'm leaning Chiefs. Mahomes is just the guy I feel like that can make that 1 or 2 extra play that necessarily another guy can't make. And it's going to be tough because you guys have a good running game. Kansas City's running defense isn't that good. Yeah. But I also think that Kansas City is going to game plan and look at those Russell Wilson tapes and use Seattle-type game plans.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah, I really think that's what they'll go back and look at. You mentioned Murray. I think that's what they'll look at is the mobile quarterbacks. What have they done well against the Niners? And that's how they'll add their wrinkles into it. So I think Andy Reid's a really sharp coach. And honestly, I think Shanahan is a smart, real up-and-coming coach. I think you guys have something something here for the next few years. So I picked 38-34 Chiefs, but honestly, if the Niners win, it would not shock me. I have not been this excited for a Super Bowl as an outside fan in years. I cannot remember the last time I was this excited. I really can't. No Patriots, no boring storylines. There's just so
no
much.
Patriots.
So much.
More than half the country is happy about that. There's no doubt about that. But we're all sick of seeing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I will say that as a 49er fan, of course, you cannot be more excited for a Super Bowl when your team's in it. That's your number one goal. That's what you want every single year. But I will also say that for those 3 hours plus, it's not a stress-free viewing pleasure. It is a very invested, emotional time, right? And there is something to be said about going to a Super Bowl party going, I don't really care who wins, or I want the Patriots to lose, but it's not going to kill me if they win. I'm just going to go and drink and talk and have a good time. This is not one of those games. This is one of those like, okay, I got to sit down and, it's like, well, stress about it. But it was just like the Giants in the World Series and the playoff runs. It was just every game is torture. You're just so invested. It just feels so personal, and that's why fans are short for fanatics. We're fanatics about this stuff. So
I get rabid with football too. Like we were texting the other night with it, and like I love baseball. I don't yell at the screen often. It's kind of like, why didn't you hit the cutoff, man? Screaming like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Football during a Bears game, man, I am screaming my head off. There's no doubt. I used to have a stuffed football that I threw around. I don't know what I did with it anymore. That's the one. Like, I think it's the aggressive nature. I hate to be all testosterone laden, but I think that's kind of what it is. It fires on that cylinder. And my wife watches football with me too, and she gets excited too. And I think we're kind of pulling Chiefs, and that's kind of why I take them. But I look forward to it, and I think you're lucky. You're going to have a team for years to come. So hopefully the Giants, like you said, hopefully Farhan sees the buzz. The Warriors could bounce back next year, and there could be a bunch of winning teams right there on the Bay, because with the Raiders gone, there's some opening up for room for fans everywhere.
Yeah, so hey, Giants fans, if you're not a Niner fan, I'm sorry. We apologize. We went on a little too long about it. I will close with this. I do predict the Niners will win. 37-28 is my score. God knows what it's going to be. It could be 3-0. It could be 72-40. I don't know, but I do feel confident with this Niners team going in. Like I said, they've proven me wrong every time. And now here's another thing about Bay Area sports, since you just mentioned that. It flags something. The Bay Area has had at least one team in the championship game or series every single year of the 2010s except one, and that was 2011.
Yep.
They obviously had the Giants in 10, 12, and 14, right? They had the Sharks in 16. They had the Niners in 13 in the Super Bowl. And then, of course, they had the Warriors with their epic run of 5 straight NBA Finals. So, and then, of course, now the Niners again in 2020. So they've had 10 out of the last 11 years, the Bay Area has had at least one team in the championship. And that's awesome. Like, I look back at that and I'm like, crap, almost every year I've had a team to root for in the freaking championship, whether it be NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, World Series, or Super Bowl. So that's something that I think is rare in sports for a metropolitan area to have that kind of good run. So, but I agree with you. I think the Niners, because the turnaround was just ridiculously quick, they're not losing anyone next year. So there's no reason to believe that they're not going to be a pick to win the NFC next year again. So this could be a 3, 4, 5 year little mini run, and maybe the Niners will get back to some of their Super Bowl dynasty eras. But that said, with free agency and all the other teams that can rebuild so quickly, one game can tear it all down. So we'll see what happens. All right, so let's talk about the Giants. So let's talk about something that has been out there for many, many weeks, and we just haven't recorded since it happened. The elephant in the room. In December, of course, Madison Bumgarner, as we predicted, did sign with someone else, and he signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, that in itself was, to me, a surprise. I know he didn't want to go to the American League because he values hitting so much. He wants to hit. But Arizona just, remember those last-minute rumors about going to L.A., and everyone was freaking out? Thankfully, it wasn't that. But it's in the division, Eric. I mean, they play the Diamondbacks 19 times, and I think MadBum, if he's healthy, is going to pitch against the Giants at least 5 times this year. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
5 times a year the next 5 years.
Oh, that's just like, yeah, you can almost get a full season of starts over the next 5 years with MadBum facing the Giants, and it's going to be really interesting to how he performs. And we don't have to get too much into the minutia of it because I think a lot is going to happen during spring training. But he signed with Arizona for 5 years, $85 million. I know there's some bonuses and stuff attached, incentives attached, but even though the final offer from the Giants wasn't revealed, the rumors were that the annual average value was higher in the Giants' offer, but it was for 4 years, 1 year less, and an overall contract value was less. And so, right now, of course, Bumgarner's camp is saying that's why they went with Arizona, and plus he loves Arizona, and he had his horses down there, and blah blah blah. But there's a lot of inside baseball stuff about how the Giants with the previous ownership, not Farhan, just did not, we talked about it on this podcast the last several years about the Giants needing to offer that extension to Bumgarner, especially because of his team-friendly discount that he took way back in, whatever it was, 2014, 2013, and the multiple extensions he had. The Giants definitely underpaid for Bumgarner's services over the years. He single-handedly won at least one World Series, contributed to the other 2, and was just a Giant icon. And the fact that the Giants, after he hurt himself on the motorcycle, that was
right.
They basically took a step back and said, you know what? We don't know what the long-term effects of his shoulder injury are going to be. And I don't blame the Giants for being cautious about it. I don't, because it was his pitching shoulder, and he was very rusty coming out of the gate. And to be honest, even though he's been a good pitcher since then, he has not been the Bumgarner of old. So there may be some truth to that concern, despite his young age. So again, I'm not saying Bumgarner's worth, $18, $19, $20 million a year like he was forecast to make. And I do slightly understand the Giants' position, but I also understand Bumgarner's position in his camp is like, well, F you. You never got me that extension, and now you're offering me less than Arizona in terms of years. So I'm walking. And he had an interview with Kerry Crowley in December when he signed, and he kind of started to poke into those questions. And basically he said, I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'll talk during spring training. So I think that spring training, we may hear some more of that kind of internal strife that maybe he was concerned about. I don't know what your thoughts on it are.
Well, I mean, he looked around and he saw Crawford, he saw Bell, he saw Posey all get these big contract extensions, and after the motorbike accident, he comes back in 2017, and then he breaks his hand on the final day of spring training when Whit Merrifield snaps one back to the mound in 2018, so he misses the first month and a half of the 2018 season. And I think any chance that they had then of talking long-term extension went out the window. So I do think Bum feels like he was done dirty. I do. I like you. I was surprised at first about Arizona, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, "Damn it, man! Why didn't I even see it coming?" Like it makes perfect sense. I mean, this is the story of the guy who saved the baby or the pregnant bunny from the rattlesnake or something like that. Him and his wife a couple of years ago during spring training. Like, how did I not see Arizona as the perfect? I mean, John Wayne, rides through the West. That's Madison Bumgarner in a nutshell. I think that he was a little bitter that he didn't get one of those extensions like the other guys got, and I kind of feel like Bumgarner felt like he was playing with Bochy across his chest and not Giants a lot of the time. And the fact that Bochy is gone, and Bochy was his guy and like his second father, it seemed, I think that plays a big deal in it. I think if Bochy was still there, Bum would have considered. And I think he would have considered coming back, and he would ask Bochy, how long are you going to be here? And then he would have signed for however long that is. I think that they were that tight and it was that familial. So I do think he feels kind of scorned by the Giants, and there's some bitterness out there, I think, with him. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's what he talks about in spring training is, well, Bochy was done and all these other guys got big deals, back then, and they just came up with excuses, my motorbike, getting hit by the line drive, and I just wanted to go out there and pitch, man, and apparently I didn't prove enough to them. I really see it being something like that. But I don't mind seeing Bum 5 times for the next 5 years. It's kind of fun. It adds a little wrinkle to his legacy. I'm rooting for him to stay on track and become a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it'll be interesting to see if he solidifies his career with some good seasons with Arizona to solidify that Hall of Fame track. And, obviously I would assume he has to go in as a Giant if that ever happened because he won 3 World Series and that's most of his legacy. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, you have these little, these heroes, if you will, using that term lightly because we're adults here and we're older than these players.
Right.
You have these people that you look up to and you're big fans of. And when you see this happen, it just gives a little sour taste in your mouth. It's like when Montana was traded to Kansas City, It's like
right.
These, when Ronnie Lott, Jerry Rice played for the Raiders. It doesn't feel right. And even though when you remove yourself from their retirement, they just refocus back onto their days with the Niners and not with those extra teams. It's just right now. It's a 5-year contract, not 2 years, right? It's a long time. It's a long time with this team. So, he spent over 10, 11 seasons with the Giants. So, he might spend a third of his major league career with Arizona, and that's a lot. So
that's weird.
It hurts a little bit, but because he feels like one of our own, and he came up in the system, and
he was 21 years old in the 2010 World Series. I mean, we literally watched him throw 7 shutout innings in 2010 World Series. He was a kid, so it was like he's ours. He really is. It's just sad to see. It makes me think that Posey will move on after his contract as well.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I believe this is the last year of his contract, isn't it? 2020?
No, 2020. I thought it was 2022.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to look up.
I'll have to look that up. All right. Well, while you're looking that up, boy, talk about a brand new team. We'll get into the players in a bit, but it started with their coaching staff, not just with Gabe Kapler, whom we talked about during that November podcast, but the rest of their coaching staff. Now, apparently they can carry 13 to every city, but they can have up to 16 or so on the roster, something like that. Anyway, they've cleaned house. The only returning coaches, technically, on the roster, they call them coaches anyway, on the San Francisco Giants website, are, of course, Ron Wotus, which was a bit of a surprise.
Unbelievable.
He was going to move on. And I think that's a plus. I think he brings so much of that leadership and experience that he can advise Gabe Kapler on. I think that's going to be huge. Sean Dunston is still going to be their Major League replay analyst. And then their bullpen catcher, Taira Umatsu, is back again, which, again, that doesn't mean much. I'm just talking about the people that are back. Everyone else is new. Everyone else. And so I'm not going to talk about any of these guys too specifically, but here we go. Gabe Kapler, of course, the manager. Kai Correa is the bench coach. Donnie Ecker is the hitting coach. Justin, and I'm going to murder some of these pronunciations. Justin Viel is the hitting coach. Dustin Lind is the director of hitting and assistant hitting coach. Andrew Bailey, former major leaguer, is a pitching coach. Brian Bannister, director of pitching. Ethan Katz, assistant pitching coach. Antoine, I don't know. Richardson, first base, is going to be the first base coach. Of course, Ron Wotus. Craig Albernaz is going to be a bullpen coach, catching coach. Taira Umatsu, Sean Dunston. Mark Hallberg is going to be an assistant coach. And then we get to Nick Ortiz, quality assurance, and then John Yandel is a batting practice pitcher. Alyssa Nacken, or Nacken, I don't know how you pronounce her last name, was hired to be an assistant coach. Now, she will be the first female major league coach in history. And I think that's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's really it's a surprise because I know that there's been women in locker rooms before as some sort of coordinator, this or that, but I didn't realize nobody had been like a coach. And it's kind of neat that the Giants just happen to be the team. I mean, it's funny because you look at the football team, the Niners, they have Sowers.
Female. Mm-hmm.
Right, and she's the first female assistant coach in football, and the Niners are going to the Super Bowl. It's just kind of funny that it happens, right away like that. And then the Giants come along and happen to be the first major league team. Kudos to them. Apparently, she's a softball player. She was a 3-time All-American or something like that, I think.
Yeah, she was a player. Mm-hmm.
So if she knows her stuff, she knows her stuff. I can't imagine in 2020 that these guys care that much who they're talking to about ball. If she's somebody that spots something in a swing, if she says your hip's coming open faster here, or did you watch how your shoulder drops as you're stepping here, and it's something that a guy finds in a swing and fixes, they're gonna be freaking thankful and happy about it. They don't care. They're totally happy, fine with that. And I think it's good that the Giants happen to be that team, to do it first. I think it's awesome too. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is surprised by the fact that, women probably, at least in the next, 20 years for certain, are never going to crack the major leagues as a player. And I know that has to do with a lot of the physical differences between the sexes, and it's unfortunate. And I'm not saying that a woman cannot do things that a man does, but I think, overall, when you're talking about the top male athletes in sports that require more speed, strength, and agility, that's just what's going to happen. Even your top female athlete is going to have a tough time cracking the top 500 male athletes in the sports that require some of those dimensions of agility, speed, and power and strength. But that being said, there's no reason why a woman cannot coach in major leagues. And there are plenty of examples of men who have coached without having any major league experience as a player, some with very little experience as a minor league player. And of course you have GMs and player assistants and scouts and people who draft who never played baseball in their life except maybe, high school or below, because they're in the analytics and scouting and all the other things. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. I love that they're expanding it. That being said, I'm disgusted by a lot of the social media responses to it. Now, granted, I know it's a minority, but
yes,
boy, does it surface when this happens. And I am just, it makes me so embarrassed as a part of the human race and being a male myself. I just cannot believe there are still men out there that are so insecure with their lives that they cannot handle that an assistant coach, not the manager, not a player, whatever, an assistant coach is a woman. Like, oh, she's going to have a great time giving him Gatorade. Oh, she had softball, totally different sport. She doesn't know anything about baseball. I know more than her. Like, these totally misogynistic, pedantic tweets and Facebook posts and comments on websites and chat boards, and you just want to murder these guys. It's like, what is wrong with you? Who abused you as a child,
Yes. Like, where does that come from? And what are you teaching your own children? So, not to go too far off on that. And there's an elephant in the room there, and I'm not going to name him either, just because I don't want to. It makes you embarrassed. When I see certain tweets after this happened going around my timeline, tweets from I belong to a couple different types of communities on my Twitter feeds. I have the Giants community, I have Fish, the band community, music community, and when I see those tweets infiltrate my Fish community and people talking about it and things like that, it's embarrassing. It's like, I can't believe this guy, quote unquote, represents the organization that I love, or was a big part of doing positive things for the organization that I love. And it doesn't put a taint on it. It really doesn't. I mean, 2010 is forever and ever the year that broke everything. It does not put a taint on it, but there's a certain part of it now involving a thong that's just kind of stained. It's the stained thong.
Yeah,
it's like
I was thinking about a player that rhymes with Shabri Muff. Is it?
Yes, I believe that's the one. It's just unbelievable, and it's just embarrassing, and I don't understand having, like you said, she's not the head of the organization. She's not the decision-making process. We really truly don't know what her role is. She might analyze things like I said, or she might be adept in a certain strategical portion that we don't know about. We really don't know. There's nothing wrong with more voices lending hands to try to move in the same direction. So, from that perspective, bravo to the Giants. And I hate that in this day and age, we still have men that think that way. It's just, it's a tough pill to swallow. And I don't think the players have a problem with it. I truly don't.
I really don't think the players, the 49ers have been completely accepting of their female coach, assistant coach. And these guys, they're not going to have any issue with it at all.
Katie Sowers, that's her first name. I want to give her credit. I don't want to just keep saying that woman.
Yeah, that woman. No, I know. It's like Google. No, I just, certain men in this world are just have an inferiority complex and are threatened by women who do stuff that they think is their domain. And I don't understand that psychology. I really don't.
Just let people live their lives, man. If she wants to be baseball coach of the Giants, right?
Okay, if you were in line and you were interviewed by the San Francisco Giants to be an assistant coach and she beat you out, okay, maybe I'll be like, okay, you could be a little upset about it. Other than that, why do you care? It doesn't affect your life, man.
Even if you are that guy on the cusp and she beats you out, that's the time to take a look at yourself and go, wait a second, what do I need to do to improve myself to get this job? I mean, you could be a little bitter, but you're bitter because you got beat out. You'd be bitter towards anybody you got beat out.
That's what I mean, exactly. Bitter about being beat out, not because she's a woman. But some of these guys are just like, woman. It's like, yeah, what about the guy who was hired who never played a single inning in his life? Do you have a problem with that? It's like silence.
Jonah Hill didn't play baseball, but he was fantastic in Moneyball. So I mean, come on, Jonah Hill was a huge part of it.
That's
so
right.
There's room in this world for the Jonah Hills.
Oh, it just disgusts me. I keep thinking that society is going to keep advancing, and then we take these 2 steps back, and won't say anything about the impeachment going on. But anyway, all right, let's move on. So Farhan has been busy, not just with cleaning house with the coaches. Of course, that was primarily with Gabe Kapler and his staff, getting those guys. But the 40-man roster looks, we're supposed to be podcasters. We're supposed to be experts on the San Francisco Giants. I'm telling you right now, Eric, I'm not an expert on the San Francisco Giants. I'm sorry.
Oh, I've got some of the transactions in front of me. Yeah, you want me to go through some of these?
Go for it. Yeah, we got December and January, and you might want to fast forward about 5 minutes.
Well, you're right, December and January, because like November, last time we talked, we pretty much covered everything. We'll put a pin in this and come back to it, but at the beginning of the month, Kevin Pillar was not offered a contract through the arbitration, so he elected free agency, and the Giants let him go, which was a bit of a surprise, and some fans were, but like I said, we'll put a pin in that and come back to it. Giants signed left-handed pitcher Tyler Anderson. It looks like they're trying to shore up left-handed pitching. And then they traded with the Angels for Zach Cozart and shortstop Will Wilson. And Will Wilson's a prospect that apparently they're very high on. They then signed right-handed pitcher Kevin Gausman to possibly be part of the rotation, possibly be a swing guy. Garrett Williams went to the Angels as the part of the trade, the player to be named later back in that trade. Then they claimed a pitcher, Danny Jimenez, off waivers on December 12th. And then that was it. Everybody got quiet. Everybody had a happy new year. And they put out their list of guys that they invited to spring training, which I'll get back to in a minute. Back on the 12th, they signed free agent left-hand pitcher Jerry Blevins, who's been a good free relief pitcher. He most recently, you'd remember him with the Mets. He's a guy who's a good curveball. He can definitely step in and pitch to 3 batters in a situation if need be. So they designated Zach Cozart, who they just traded for. So that Zach Cozart trade with the Angels was just so the Angels could dump Cozart's contract, I believe. And then the Giants immediately replaced him on the 40-man roster when they signed Jerry Blevins. So that was all about getting the Will Wilson guy, which is something I've seen Farhan do multiple times, where he's already now made the trade and then released one of the guys from the trade and kept the guy who's in the system. Then they went and claimed Jake Jewell, another right-handed pitcher off waivers, and signed Tyson Ross, old friend, old name. He was a Diamondback. He's been a national. We've all seen him.
Brother of Joe Ross, yeah.
There you go. Yep. In the past, and then Zach Cozart got his outright release after that. Trevor Oakes got designated for assignment that I didn't even notice. And then Drew Smiley, another left-handed pitcher. Like I said, Farhan stockpiling pitching, and I tweeted it the other day. You can never have too much pitching. This is one aspect of his roster building I do not mind whatsoever, is he is just stocking up pitching. And then they designated Jake Jewell, who they just picked up a few days before that for an assignment, because they claimed Luis Madero off waivers from the Los Angeles Angels, a right-handed pitcher who I believe we've also seen at some point in the past, who's apparently a kid who has some decent stuff. So Farhan's trying to build pitching, and the roster has just been turning and turning and turning. But most of the things that I talked about had the same thread in common, pitching. It's just the Giants are stockpiling pitching.
They are definitely stockpiling pitching. There's no question about it. Lots of moves. And so for a team that probably won't win many games this year, they're trying to develop prospects. I mean, this is his plan for the next, 2 to 3 years to come back. And I get it. I mean, he's been successful with Oakland and L.A., and now he's applying that same strategy to San Francisco. And, of course, after they won all their World Series, we all know about the bad contracts the Giants had and the old free agents and all that. That's just old baseball. That's not going to work anymore. So I welcome it. I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, it's not like there were a ton of free agents and the Giants had like $100 billion in cash to go sign everyone. So that being said, there are some fans that are a little bit upset about this, saying, hey, are we even going to compete this year? Well, I think the clear signal is no, not so much. This year is going to be a development year. This is going to be plugging and playing in this. And in fact, Zaidi was interviewed on KMBR earlier this week, and he said, quote, promoting guys aggressively and rewarding performance, rewarding guys addressing areas of weakness that we have been that have been pointed out to them as things that they need to address. That's a real positive, Zaidi said. I expect us to continue on that path in 2020. So that's good old GM speak for, we might not be that good this year.
Right. We're going to, promoting guys aggressively means we're going to take a look at a lot of guys at the major league level. So there will be a lot of different guys getting tryouts to see if they can. That's why we are aggressively rewarding performance. They want to see who can stick and stay. Zaidi's looking for the next Max Muncy. It's like the life mission.
It is, and you dangle that carrot in front of all these young kids in the minor leagues, and there's some minor leaguers that toil forever before they get promoted to the club, because there's these established veterans or veterans that have these large contracts, and they're not going to ever move those guys despite their poor performances. So this is a way to say, hey, look, we've cleared the books. There's really not that many guys on the professional team club that have their positions locked up for more than a year or two. So if you show performance at the major league level in your small sample size, good things will come. And that's a huge carrot to these guys signed with the Giants. They would much rather be as a player, of course, if you were a 23, 24, 25-year-old kid, signed to the Giants, you'd be like, oh, hell yeah, I've got a chance here. If I just do well, I have a chance making the club. But if you sign with, another team with established veterans, you'd be like, it might be 5 years till I get a call-up, So I like the incentive. I get the incentive. But as a fan, you're like, great. You see a bunch of AA and AAA players floundering in the major leagues for the most part. Fantastic. Because that's what happens most of the time, obviously. You're not going to call up 9 guys and all 9 are going to exceed. You're going to have one guy, maybe, that does well. So It's just the way the Giants have to do things. This is the rebuilding process. This is the painful portion of tearing down the old, capacity of the team, the old way of doing things. And I'm not against it. It's just like when you have a hangover. You got to make it through to the other side, and then everything's kosher. So.
I have two points about that. One is I'm not gonna lie. I don't have the same excitement for this upcoming season that I've had for other seasons in the past. Even last season, even knowing that it was Bochy's last season, I had more excitement and anticipation building up to pitchers and catchers and opening day. And I just don't have it this year because I know that that's what Farhan's going to do. Keep turning the roster, keep bubbling guys up to the surface. And do that. And, these guys, these players, they think to themselves, if I am the guy that performs, then I can also be a part of a contender when this team gets to contender status. Right. You put faith in yourself as a player to put then faith in the front office that if they were able to follow through and find a guy like you, that they will find other guys like you who will be able to, come together and form the cohesive winning type of baseball that you want to see played. So, it's kind of it's a good thing because it is a reward basis. It just, the Giants have stepped into the new era of baseball, whereas they're not going to be handing out as many big contracts. Like you mentioned here that there's other outfield free agents that were linked to them. Castellanos has been linked to the Giants. Domingo Santana, Steven Souza Jr. are still out there. I'll even throw out Yasiel Puig as a name because I really would have no problem with that. I didn't hate the guy. I was just always fine. It would be hilarious if Puig comes to the Giants and then we have bum Puig matchups. Yeah. Right. We have bum Puig matchups still. It's freaking so fantastic. Weird. I'd love it. Weird. It was so funny.
Maybe like alternate reality.
Right. Let's do it right now. Let's turn this on its head.
Yeah, but nothing else to look forward to.
Right. So, I think with a guy like Puig or Santana or Souza, it's a one-year deal that they'd be looking for. I don't think they see the Giants as a team that's going to contend anytime soon. Somebody like Castellanos, I think, is looking for a few years. So I see where he's been linked to the Giants as a possible fit. But that's about it right now. Corner outfielder, a veteran presence corner outfielder is what the Giants are craving. And it's funny because by letting Pilar go, they got rid of that veteran presence in the clubhouse. Because every guy we mentioned here, Castellanos, Santana, Souza, they're all veterans now. And, Pilar, them deciding not to give him the contract, which I totally understand. They feel like they can get somebody cheaper value. And he strikes out more. He doesn't walk enough. He doesn't get on base. He's not at top of the order. And if he's, not hot, he's not a good middle of the order player. So I totally understand the Giants letting Pilar go. And honestly, I don't even remember. I don't know if I've seen if he's signed anywhere.
No, so that's a free agent. So, the other name that we would have said, because, but he signed 2 days ago, was Marcell Ozuna. He was linked to the Giants as well, but he ended up signing a 1-year, $18 million contract, which is insane. He had $241 last year. $241.
Giants ain't handing that out. That guy, his fielding skills are not getting $18 million from Farhan Zaidi and the Giants. No, that's really what it boils down to.
Farhan is about cost effectiveness. He is definitely dollar per WAR, dollar per OPS. He is definitely on that spectrum, and I'm actually for it. I am in the long run. It's hard because this is that transition period from old school baseball, from signing guys who won you World Series to crazy contracts, to a situation where a guy can make the tough calls and go, Kevin Pilar was fantastic. He hit 260 whatever. He hit 21 home runs. He hit 80. He drove in 87 runs. He led our team in most of these offensive categories. He had these amazing catches out in center field. But the reality is, he was paid $5 million or whatever last year, and he was due to make about 9.7 this year with his arbitration clause or amount.
Why? Why would you pay him that?
But why would you pay him $10 million for having the lowest on-base percentage of all 30 club's outfielders. Like, yes, he hits home runs. Yes, he drives in runs. Yes, he makes an occasional spectacular catch. But his defensive WAR and defensive metrics are actually below average because he doesn't get good jumps on balls. He makes up for it with his athletic ability to make those dives at the end, which make SportsCenter highlights. He strikes out a ton. He does not walk. He does not steal that much. But yes, he popped 21 home runs and 87 RBI. But again, they're looking at these are his career highs, and he's getting older. Most likely he's not going to replicate this next year. So why are we going to sign him to a $10 million contract to not get on base for other guys to drive him in? So I get the analytics of it. I do.
Yeah.
And so that's what Farhan is doing.
I mean, 293 on base percentage. He's under 300 of getting on base.
293 on base. Think about that, guys. You're a really good hitter if you're over 300. If your on base is below 300, that's not good, especially if you're at the top of the lineup. That's not good at all. So, good hitter, quote unquote, in certain situations, but he's not worth $10 million a year. So I agree with you. Marcell Ozuna at almost twice that amount, hitting less than Pilar did last year, and 28 home runs, so 7 more home runs, but hitting in a much more friendly park, of course. Just didn't make sense. So I get it. I get what they're doing. Sorry about that.
It happens.
I know, right? Always forget about the phone there. All right, so the Giants also signed veteran outfielder, first baseman Darren Ruff to a minor league contract. He spent the last 3 seasons in the Korean baseball organization, where he hit 86 home runs and had a 965 OPS.
Jesus. In 3 years?
That is fantastic. I mean, that's almost 30 home runs a year and almost 1,000 OPS. That's like kind of like the immaculate benchmark, right? 1,000 OPS is like superstar.
Right.
He also, however, has been in the major leagues with parts of 5 seasons with the Phillies, and he hit 35 home runs over those 5 seasons in part-time play. So the question is, again, there are some players from the Korean baseball organization that excel, some that just flounder. I mean, the Giants had whatever his name was, Wong, a couple years ago. Remember that? And he had such a sour experience. He went back to Korea. And in fact, I looked up some of his, I'm not going to read them to you, but some of his agents' quotes saying, yeah, basically he struggled here. He struggled here with the pitching. He struggled here with the culture, and it just didn't work out. So it was disappointing, and that's why they went back to Korea. So, and he had phenomenal numbers, similar to Rudd's here, in Korea. So, he's not a Korean person, so, or of descent, so maybe culturally he'll be okay, obviously. So we'll see what happens. I mean, again, Farhan's taking these flyers on non-roster invitees to spring training, so I don't see a problem. There's very little downside.
Right? Anybody that can get the job done and makes it easier to trade Brandon Belt in his contract, I think is what Farhan's building towards. I'm serious. It's going to happen.
On that one. Yeah, no,
it's going to happen. I don't know when, but I think it's eventually going to happen. Yeah. Brandon Belt's just not part of the future, and no. I don't think Crawford is, sadly, and I don't know what to make of Posey and Bart, and I don't know how all that's going to play out because this is all new with Kapler coming in. We're not really sure how the hands are going to approach the day-to-day lineup now. We were just used to Bochy, having his guys go run out there. Even he did tinker a little bit more. We had what's his name and who's it, what's it, starting in the outfield to start the year last year. But that was to Farhan's behest. But other than those 2 random dudes, Bochy would just kind of run out of his guys. So I'm not sure on the day-to-day process, how often they're going to mix and match lineups. So you would think that they are just trying to build depth. And if a guy like Ruff can catch on as a first baseman, I mean, it could be an Ishikawa. Who the hell knows? He could be the guy hitting the home run in a few years. Maybe the Giants will turn it around by then.
Farhan's looking for lightning in a bottle and a couple of guys that are going to stick. And every year he's going to look for a couple of guys that stick. And if you add that up with 1 or 2 guys per year over 3 years, you might get 6 guys. And that's a that's 2/3 of your lineup. So,
Well, you look at the Dodgers payroll. I did this last year when Farhan came aboard. I looked at the Dodgers payroll for the 4 years that he was there, and I noticed that he slowly took the big contracts off the books.
yeah.
He also, he held on to the Kershaw big contract. Ryu, I believe, had a big contract at that time, but I think he's gone now. He's somewhere else.
He is.
I'm not sure. Yeah. And then there was somebody else who had a big contract, but like other than that, it immediately dipped to below 10 million for everybody else. So it was like in the single digit millions. So that's kind of what he's just trying to do. He's trying to build by depth and bubble up, and then, use everybody's value to their advantage, to his advantage.
Yeah, Ryu signed with the Blue Jays. So
That's it. The Blue Jays. I knew he stayed blue. So it's funny. You mentioned here that the Giants are projected for 69.5 victories this season, which is the second to lowest amount in the National League behind the Miami Marlins at 64.5, which is just unbelievable that's our Giants team right now.
yeah, and you know what? I mean, we'll get to our preseason predictions when the roster is more solidified. We're coming out of spring training, so obviously there's a lot to be determined, and we'll see what happens with their performance. But I probably would have guessed in the low 70s, so it's not that far off. Maybe by a couple of victories. So it doesn't surprise me that Vegas is taking 69.5. Now that said, it's hard for me if I was, had a gun to my head and I had to bet $1,000 right now on the over/under. I have to bet the over.
Right.
I mean, that would be my gut call. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that the Giants are going to win 69 or less. It can happen. It has happened. In fact, 2 years ago, right? They won less than 69. So it's not like it's unprecedented, but it's hard for me. But again, we don't have Bochy, and we have a whole new coaching staff, and we have a whole new roster other than a few stalwarts. So we're going into probably the most unknown season of Giants baseball I have ever experienced in my life. Not just during this podcast, but my life. I have never seen this much turnover. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a different experience. It's really going to be interesting doing this podcast this year. I feel like we're going to have different talking points than we're used to having because we don't have the same standbys and guys to fall back on. When we talk about Bochy moves, we know how Bochy moves a bullpen. We know who he uses in what situations. We can tell when guys are in favor and out of favor. We're not going to pick up on that right away with Gabe Kapler. Like, this is a guy that apparently used his pitchers, his relievers, the first month that he was manager in Philly. He used his relievers so badly that he was already being called to be fired. So who the hell knows how it's going to all shake out? It's uncertain is the best way to put it, because we've never experienced anything like this. We've seen other teams strip down and rebuild. And we've seen the Giants semi do it at times, but they've always had a steady hand guiding the ship. Dusty was steady, Philippe was steady, Boch was steady, Roger Craig was steady. It's and I hate to always keep bringing it back to Kapler, but to me, he's the unknown in all this. He's the cog. I don't know how he's going to run yet. We kind of have a sense how Farhan is now. We see what he does. We see his stockpiling status, but we don't know how Kapler is going to institute those things just yet. And I think that's what adds to the uncertainty of what we have coming up. So I'm with you, though. I'd bet over the 69.5. I'd have to think they're going to win at least 72, 75 games. I can't see them not being competitive enough. They seem to have enough talent to be competitive. Are they better than anybody else in the division? I'm not sure. It all depends if Arenado stays with the Rockies or not, because he's worth 5 wins all on his own. But I think the whole division has them outclassed, and I don't think we need to. I don't think we're looking at a postseason run. I don't think we're looking at a winning season. But it is. It's the most. This is strange. It's very strange. It's very out of our element to be looking at a team like this. I'd love to be a Braves fan and know that my team is like everybody's going to the Braves. Like Ozuna, you just mentioned. Exactly. Nats fans coming off the win. Twins fans got to feel primed and ready. 92.5. Wow, that's high on the Twins, man. There's got to be some regression, although they got Donaldson. I mean, it's good to be those teams. It's our time to be down. It's okay. We won 3 championships in 5 years, just starting 10 years ago. So it's kind of the price the Giants have to pay to turn it all back around again.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so let's talk about Hall of Fame. So we knew this was probably coming, but the Hall of Fame class of 2020 is Derek Jeter and mildly surprising Larry Walker. However,
SpongeBob Walker.
Yes, it was the last year of eligibility for Walker, and he got a 20% plus bump from last year, I believe you said.
22%.
Yeah, so he got 76.5 or whatever it was. So he met the 75% threshold. However, of course, the attention always turns to Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. And Bonds got 60.7% of the vote, Clemens 61%. They both have 2 years left on the ballot. And like you said here in the notes, they are plateauing a bit. So, again, we have your older, more traditional writers that just refuse to acknowledge the accolades that both Bonds and Clemens achieved. And now this is where it gets to the, more of a philosophical approach. And I understand both sides of the argument. I do, but I side with one. And my issue is, yes, Bonds cheated. Yes, Clemens cheated. But so did many other previous Hall of Famers. And even guys that are suspected perhaps to have cheated still continue to make it into the Hall of Fame, Jeff Bagwell, and others, right? So why is there just this lightning rod on? I mean, I know they were the face of PEDs, and that's the whole reason, but it's this weird dichotomy of oh yeah, this guy who may have cheated, I voted for. This guy who I know cheated, I'm not voting for. That just seems so subjective to me. And so
yeah,
I think as a Hall of Fame voter, you really have to take a stand of I will never vote for anyone who has ever been linked to anything, be it Mitchell Report or rumors or innuendo, or say, I don't know everything about every situation. So I'm just going to look at the numbers. And I'm going to vote on the numbers. And that's it. And so, but there definitely is a lot of gray area there. And that's what, baseball writers of America seem to be doing, especially the older ones, doing. So, my question to you, Eric, is, with 2 years left of eligibility, let's just talk about Barry Bonds. Certainly, he's not going to get a 15% jump next year. That's just not happening. In 2022, that's his last year of eligibility before he could be voted in by the Veterans Committee after that. Do you think there's going to be a surge of support from the writers because it's his last year? Or do you think that it might actually have the opposite effect? It's some of these writers might go oh, it's his last year, I'm definitely not voting for him.
It's kind of such a tough call because he and Roger, they obviously seem linked arm in arm because Clemens got literally one more vote than Barry did this year. So there's just, I think, literally one person out there who voted Clemens but not Bonds for some unknown reason. That I don't think that's the thing. I don't think that if Barry and Roger, but Barry, if he gets to the veteran committee, as long as guys like Joe Morgan are there, he's going to have a tough time, which is just comical because, as it's been pointed out, there are guys, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Ernie Banks, all these guys included, all the guys through the 50s, 60s. Amphetamines have been banned from the game for about 15 years now, but amphetamines used to run rampant. They used to be called greenies. They used to be available in handfuls, in clubhouses, across baseball, no problem. I've read many a book from players who talked about greenies back in those days. So to say that certain players didn't get an edge over other players possibly at times, I think it's just, it's laughable. It's always, everybody's always looked for the biggest edge. And Clemens and Bonds specifically, they cheated, but they at first were not breaking the rules. That was always my first argument was, well, when he was doing it, it wasn't against the rules. And I thought that was justified. But, you have to just realize that it was pervasive in the game at the time. It was during an epidemic. So you chalk it up and you bring up the class of 2022, and that being the last year of Bonds' eligibility. And I think that, like, David Ortiz is eligible that year. And I think he's the one guy that makes this an interesting case study because he was somebody who was named in the Mitchell report, but there was never any real blowback on. He is in his first year of eligibility, and David Ortiz is an icon. He's a legend of baseball. He's a legend in the history of Red Sox. It's just the way it is. He had 2 clutch hits to win games, ALCS game 4 and 5 to send the Red Sox back to New York before they went on their 0-4 run to win it all. He was when Boston had the bombing, he was the center of it. David Ortiz is probably a Hall of Famer in many people's minds. And so he might be the case study at that time, but that is their last year on the ballot. So it could, I think, like you, it's polarized. Either they'll say, okay, this is the last year he's on the ballot, but wait a second, if I'm voting for Ortiz and, well, he was kind of named, maybe I should vote for Bonds now that it's his last year. Or it could go the other way of, you know what, let's just get him the hell out of our lives. Let somebody else deal with it, the Veterans Committee, whatever. How about I don't check him this year so he's just as quickly off the ballot and I don't have to worry about it. It can entirely. I think it's one of two things. They've plateaued. He's plateaued 56, 57, 60% here. I don't see a big jump next year. And then I agree with you. He's either going to jump suddenly into the 75, 76 range, or he's going to fall down to like 50, 45%. And I don't know which way to say it, but Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. He is. Roger Clemens is a Hall of Famer. He is.
Yeah, and I agree. And, a lot of prominent sports writers have made their case going like, look, guys, we cannot be the moral abjecators of this era because Major League Baseball allowed it to happen.
Right. Bud Selig.
Writers allowed it to happen. Bud Selig, who was elected to the Hall of Fame, ironically,
right.
let it happen. They turned a blind eye. And like you said, of course, there's plenty of cheaters before the PED users. Now, here's an interesting thing. Wins above replacement is a pretty good comprehensive statistic for how good a player is, right? They take into account their offensive and defensive statistics and basically say, compared to a AAA player, how many games did you win in replacement? Barry Bonds, in the history of Major League Baseball, not only has the most home runs in Major League history, which again is tainted, and I understand why. If he didn't take steroids, would he have the home run title? No, he wouldn't.
Probably not.
I agree with that. He also has the highest WAR ever in Major League history. He's sitting at 162.8. Think about that. His presence has technically, statistically won a whole season worth of games for the Giants and Pirates. Babe Ruth is number 2 at 162.1. Willie Mays is number 3 at 156.4. Okay, and we can go down the list. Here's the weird thing. He was assumed to have been taking PEDs after the 1999 season, especially after the whole McGuire-Sosa race, right? He felt left out, and that's a motivation. And you look at his change in his body size and his stature and everything like that, and it's well documented that most likely before 2000, he was not taking steroids. His WAR was 100 before 2000. Okay? So his post, 2000 WAR obviously went up a lot, but even without steroids, I'm sure it would have been in the 120s, 130s, 140s. Well, here's some of the names of guys with WARs far lower than his pre-2000 WAR that are in the Hall of Fame. And this is what I don't understand, okay?
For their full career. This is their WAR for their full career, not just a certain select years like you're using for Barry.
So I'm going to look at a benchmark of, so he has 162, right? So let's just half that to, 80, right? 82 or 81 or whatever. So if you look at the 88, whatever, George Brett in the Hall of Fame, 88.7, right? George Davis, Chipper Jones, 85.2. Ken Griffey, 83.8. Rod Carew from the Angels, 81.3. Jeff Bagwell, who I just mentioned, 79.9. And he's linked to steroids. That's what I don't get. Brooks Robinson, 78.4. Joe DiMaggio, 78.1. He had a lot of wartime service. That's why that number's a little bit
It took
low.
Joe 3 ballots to get in the Hall of Fame. I was shocked to see that.
It did. Robin Yount, 77.3. Ozzie Smith, 76.9. Paul Molitor, 75.7. Now I'm going to take a jump down to Larry Walker, who was just voted in. Now, granted, it was his last year of eligibility. He had that large jump, 72.7. I mean,
Wow.
It was way less than half of what Barry Bonds had, and 26 points lower than pre-2000. Mike Trout currently has a 72.5, basically Larry Walker's number. Derek Jeter, who missed a unanimous vote by 1, 72.4, the 58th highest WAR ever in Major League history. And then you go down the list, and you get Gary Carter, 70.1. Carlton Fisk, who made it, 68.5. And you keep going down this list, and it's insane. And there's a lot of older names that are here that some of us don't know, but let's look at ones we do know that are much, much lower. Harmon Killebrew, Twins, Masher, right? 60.4. I mean, now we're getting into almost a third of the WAR that Barry Bonds has.
Almost a third of the half of the WAR that Barry Bonds has.
Vladimir Guerrero, who made it last year, 59.4. I mean, this is insane. Now we're getting into like Enos Slaughter, like really old guys, right? 55.3. I'm looking for Joe Tinker to Evans a chance, right?
Well, yeah,
53.1. 53.1. What the hell?
You know,
So
it's
anyway,
funny.
I could go on and on. Orlando Cepeda, a giant himself, 50.2.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
I would
So
75. Wow.
yeah. So you look at these numbers. Jim Rice, 47.7. I mean,
Well,
some
okay.
of these numbers are crazy.
So Eli Manning just retired, and everybody's talking about him right now. Is he Hall of Famer? Well, you can't tell the story of football without telling the story of Eli Manning and how they slayed and I get it. And I think Eli's going to get into the Football Hall of Fame, and I think they're a little more liberal letting guys in than the Baseball Hall of Fame, obviously, because, they have more positions. They have guys who are good at different things than baseball necessarily, and Eli's going to get in. But it makes me think you can't tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds. Without Roger Clemens.
Harold Baines,
Right. Without
38.7.
I still don't get it. I still don't get why he got in. I've been questioning that this whole
Bonds is almost 4 times that.
Makes no sense to me why Harold Baines. I watched Harold Baines growing up. He was a White Sox. I watched White Sox and Cubs games growing up. I never thought to myself, that's a Hall of Famer. But you can't tell the story of baseball without Bonds, without Jeter. Jeter is included in that. That's why he's so, one off being unanimous. You can't tell the story about baseball without Jeter. Yes, he couldn't go to his left for the last 10 years of his career, but that guy's a Hall of Famer. He deserves it. He was one of the best players on one of the best dynasties and championship runs that we have seen in the modern baseball era. He has to be a part of it. That's why so many Yankees get in. That's why Mariano got in so easily. But then again, he was absolutely deserving. But Griffey was another one. You just know he was a Hall of Famer when you saw him.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's guys back in the Yankees old days. I bet Whitey Ford, you just can't tell baseball without those guys. And it's just, that's to me part of why you do put those guys in, part of why Bonds should be in. You can't tell the story of baseball without Bonds. You know what? You can't tell the story about baseball without Joe Jackson or Pete Rose either. But since Joe Jackson's dead, I think he should go in. And Pete Rose, I think they can wait until he's dead and then put him in. No offense, Pete. Sorry. But, I think that's just the best way to handle situations like that is just you have to be able to tell the story of baseball. And I worry that it's going to take for Clemens and Bonds and them, to be dead before they actually get in. And I'm sad that that's the case. People are sitting here whining that Jeter didn't get one freaking vote and Barry Bonds can't even get in. it blows my mind because Bonds was thrice the player that Jeter ever was. I know what Jeter was to the Yankees, but Bonds is just head and shoulders above him. No growth pun intended. And he just absolutely deserves to be in. And it's frustrating as a Giants fan because we will forever love him. But I was shocked to see, one vote Jeter didn't get. Willie Mays didn't get 23 freaking votes in 1979.
Racist.
How the hell? That's it. It can only be that or the character clause, because Willie got suspended from baseball for a year or two, much like Mickey Mantle did, for being tied to a casino because he was getting paid by a casino to work for a casino. And at that time, baseball didn't allow such things. So they, quote unquote, suspended him from the game during that time. And then, he came back when he was done with the job, which is ironic because now Major League Baseball is partners with MGM.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all out the door now.
It is, but you're totally right. Racism was definitely a huge, huge part of it. But, they're screaming out, one vote. The greatest player of all time missed by 23, and the other greatest player of all time can't even friggin' get in.
I know. It's crazy.
I miss it. All right. Should we go into the cheating scandal here?
Yeah, so we're going to close with this. And, in November, we knew this was happening, and it was proven with John Boy and Major League Baseball and all that. But the fallout has occurred, at least some of it. The Astros manager, A.J. Hinch, was dismissed by the owner after he was suspended for a year, and the Astros general manager was also fired after he was suspended for 1 year. So what that means is that if those two guys want to be hired by another team, they have to wait until the 2021 season to hire them. But the owner of the team, of course, dismissed them. But the fallout has extended even further, with Joey Cora being the purported mastermind of this cheating scandal, who, of course, is sorry, I said Joey. I meant Alex.
That's funny.
It's my old baseball knowledge coming in a cross-wiring.
Joey's the older brother.
Exactly. So Alex Cora, being the mastermind of this whole scheme, this cheating scandal, was dismissed in a mutual agreement, which is so funny. It's like, it's not mutual. I mean, there's no way the manager's like, yeah, I want to leave. It's like, no, you're forced out. Anyway,
I mean, so he might walk in and be like, yeah, I screwed up, but that doesn't make it mutual.
Job. Yeah.
His ass was fired. They did not want anything to do with him anymore.
Yeah, so it's a PR thing. So he was fired essentially, and then it extended all the way to Carlos Beltran, who his last major league season was with the Astros in 2017. He was hired by the Mets to be their manager, and he was fired before he even managed one game, let alone spring training. So, and Luis Rojas was just named their manager, who has been with the team since 2007, driving minor league players to hotels, moving up the chain. And he is actually the son of Felipe Alou and the brother of Moises Alou. And so I thought that was interesting because when you see the name Rojas, it's not Alou. So why is his name different? So that's a whole family surname thing when he was signed with the Nationals. But point being, this is interesting, Eric. I mean, a fallout has eliminated 10% of major league managers in a couple of weeks. And now you have things like the LA City Council voting unanimously to petition to Major League Baseball to give 2 World Series championships to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who of course faced the Houston Astros in 2017, and the Red Sox, who have also been implicated in this cheating scandal in 2018. And that's funny in itself. We'll talk about that in a second. But, this is it seems pretty cornered to the Astros universe in terms of the people connected to it. My question to you is, 1, do you think the punishment fits the crime? And number 2, do you think this extends beyond the Astros universe?
Okay, I'll take the second one first. I think it does. There's not been proof that I've seen that the Red Sox did exactly what the Astros did. I mean, the Astros, there was the banging on the trash cans, and now it's come out that possibly there were wires underneath uniforms. there's a one clip of Reddick, JJ Reddick, where people are claiming that it's confetti on him, but you can clearly see that there's a wire underneath some tape in one shot, and then when he's back in the clubhouse, the wire part is gone, but the tape is there, as if he just yanked it down. And there was a lot of talk about when Altuve hit the homer off Chapman, and maybe he got buzzed, and that's why he don't rip my shirt off. So I think that kind of stuff is specific to the Astros, but I think on the overall whole, there are teams doing things similar to this. There was rumblings. The Brewers accused the Dodgers a little bit of doing some things, and the Red Sox did have an Apple Watch incident where they got busted. So it's tough to tell what they still would have been doing. And there's also been rumblings that the Yankees might have done things like this too. But as far as the punishment fitting the crime, I don't think the punishment went far enough. And that is not necessarily for Hinch, Cora, and Beltran, and then ultimately Lunhow getting fired by Houston. Hinch absolutely deserves to be suspended and fired. He had no control. It came out that he broke the television twice, and that was his way of showing them he was unhappy with it. You're the fucking manager. If you're unhappy with something, tell your team. That's your team. You're the man in charge of the team. If there's something you don't want happening, you sit your team down and you tell them you won't tolerate it. And you tell them, I don't care if it starts at fines and then sitting people and then cutting people. If you have to escalate the punishments at that point, you tell them that that's not something you want done. You don't passive aggressively break two televisions just because, it was the way I showed my disapproval. No, you're an idiot. You turn your head the other direction, which means you allowed it to happen, which means you cheated. I really think Hinch could be banned for life for all I care at this point. Cora also, I think, could get banned for life at this point for all I care, because if he orchestrated the entire thing and he was the mastermind behind it, somebody had to put it in place. And if it was him, it teaches a lesson. You need example setting sometimes, and this might be one of those times in baseball history. And then I kind of feel bad for Beltran, because I think he got caught up in all this, because I'm sure he was instrumental because he was a veteran. But when the Mets interviewed him, they didn't ask him about any of this stuff because none of it had come out yet. The Athletic article, Mike Fiers, none of this had come out just yet. And so, Beltran didn't talk about it whatsoever. And then all of a sudden he's caught in the whirlwind of this. He gets fired. There's somebody that claims to be his niece on Twitter who listed off the buzzer thing. And then somebody else, Gary Sheffield Jr., comes out and says, no, man, that's probably a player or something. When other people are saying, yeah, it could be a niece, quote unquote, which could be a young Hispanic lady that Beltran spends time with and may be called a quote unquote niece. So there's like all sorts of speculation going out still. So the whole story I don't think is just out there yet. And the punishments, Beltran, I don't know what to make of his punishment, but I think Hinch and Cora should just be gone. And I don't think you can vacate titles. Leave them alone. I now know, you now know, forever and ever, and we know that the Astros cheated in 2017. There is a taint on them. Same with the Red Sox now in 2018. No matter how big the taint is that we learn, there is a taint on that title. It is stained. It is forever, forever not the same. So I think you either put an asterisk in the book or you leave it as it is. The Astros and the Red Sox, they won it those years, but we all know there's a stain on them. And those are not true championships. And you just don't recognize that there was a champion that year, that the Astros and the Red Sox did the worst possible thing you could do in baseball. They cheated to win. And that's why I think players need to get punished. And apparently they made a deal that players would get immunity, and it bothers me, and it's bothered other players. They've come out and said it too. And I think that that's the extent where it hasn't gone far enough. I mean, I get it. First they got immunity, but now I think more stuff's coming out. So I think that's where MLB screwed up. I think that there needs to be some accountability by the players that are currently playing. And I don't know if you saw the comments over the weekend during FanFest, because Astros FanFest was last weekend. Yeah. Bregman talked, Altuve talked, and neither of them seemed remorseful. Neither seemed contrite. They just seemed very cavalier, and even the president had to come out and issue a statement saying, well, I'm going to talk to the team and we'll have something for you in spring training, which means that he needs to tell the players what to say and what the company line is, and they all need to get in line. So, I mean, I don't know if you heard that. I don't know if you felt like, there was any repercussions, and I don't know how you feel. I feel like the players should have some sort of punishment. Do you think that these guys should get caught up in the same punishment process?
I do. I do think that Major League Baseball, at least with the commissioner, they thought, okay, look, if we're going to get information that is going to lead to a conviction or to evidence, we need to protect the players because that's the only way we're going to get the info. They also had the caveat of if we find out you were lying about it. So basically, they say, okay, look, if you tell us the truth, you have immunity. But if we find out you're lying, there's going to be punishment. So I do think that was a carrot for the players to say, okay, if I lie and someone nigs me or, says I'm lying and it's found out to be true, I could be lose my job and millions of dollars. So I better tell the truth. Plus, I'm not going to get punished by Major League Baseball. So I understand the carrot. That said, it upsets me because I don't care if a coach created the system. I don't. It's that all of the players were in on it. And this goes down to even the pitchers like Justin Verlander and others who knew this was going on. And even though they didn't actively participate in it because, they were pitchers and not hitters, the fact that they stayed silent on it, that's what bugs me about this. And this is a complicit scheme to cheat and get more wins than other teams. And, clearly in the World Series, they've documented with John Boy videos with, whistling instead of garbage can bangs in the World Series against Clayton Kershaw, for example, who was torched for that inning.
Yeah, his splits were horrible in that World Series.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I know he has a long, standing split in terms of that.
Yeah, but he was fine at home during that World Series. He just got hammered.
Right? Ryu got
Darvish
slammed.
got hammered as well.
Darvish got slammed. I mean, you go through it and you go, God, I'm not a Dodger fan. I don't want them to win, but they got a case. It's so frustrating because guys like Mike Fiers, who finally broke the story last year with The Athletic, there's that great video of him with the White Sox in Houston. And you see him and the catcher makes a signal and you hear the bang, bang. And then he stops, steps off the mound, comes back on, gets another sign, bang, bang. And then he calls the catcher out there. He knew exactly what the Astros were doing. So he was trying to change up the signs with his catcher so they wouldn't know what they were throwing or what he was throwing. And so that goes to the code of the Major League Baseball players, is that even though Mike Fiers left the Astros after 2017, when he knew that this was going on, and he was a member of the White Sox, and then eventually with the A's when he broke the story, he's like, look, I thought about it. And there are so many young kids coming up who are they don't know what's going on. And they're going to be crushed by this. They could lose millions of dollars. They could lose their spot on a major league team.
Their one shot could be in the bullpen on a road trip that happens to go through Houston because two of the guys that normally pitch are out. And this could be this one rookie shot to get in there. And then the guy goes in and he's getting banged and hammered to death. That's how is that fair to him whatsoever? But, I mean, it makes it tough to punish those players that were involved because some of them may have moved on to other teams at this point. So how do you narrow it down to just punish players that are still with the Astros or hand out suspensions? Like if Marwin Gonzalez, who's now with the Twins, you know what I mean? Yeah. It makes it's tough, but I mean, I think it would be worth it to punish these guys. It really would.
With the steroid allegations, same thing. It's like how many took steroids, how many did it for how long, how many, it's like it's a huge gray area, and it's hard to imagine. But now that we have the supposed niece of Carlos Beltran, which I fully believe is a former player.
Yeah, that's what I think it could be.
I mean, come on. How is this supposed niece going to have photos and videos of,
but apparently
and stuff?
This account though broke the news of Beltran as the Mets manager a day before.
2 weeks. No, it was 2 weeks before.
That's crazy. So that's somebody who knows something. That is somebody.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like cloak and dagger. now. It's all like intriguing. Like this story is totally an onion. Like it's really, we're not even done. I don't think the fallout is done from this. I think we're going to see more. I think we're going to learn more. I think other people are going to be involved and punished. And I think this is the biggest baseball scandal of our lifetime.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think more than steroids.
To me, this is more than steroids because that was based on an individual or individuals, right? And yes, it helped them hit the ball further. It didn't help them with hand-eye coordination. It didn't help them with knowing what pitch was coming. It didn't help them. It didn't help them with a lot of aspects of the game. It definitely helped them with recovery, and it definitely helped them with power. There's no doubt about that. But that said, if you were to ask me, do you want to take a pill that's going to make you hit the ball further and maybe recover quicker? Or do you want to know if it's a fastball, curveball, or changeup coming? Oh my God, I would take the second choice every time.
Tell me the pitch every time. Every
time. Because with the physical, enhancements, yes, you can hit the ball further. You can still strike out on a curveball you thought was going to be a fastball. Absolutely. Your timing's off. It doesn't matter how strong you are. But man, if it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you know a fastball is coming, you can sit on it. If you know a curveball is coming, you can sit on it. And if it's in your zone, your timing will be much better. And of course, granted, you're not going to hit 1,000, but you're going to hit much higher. You're going to hit that gapper. You're going to hit that line drive over the shortstop. You're going to hit that home run. So to me, the sign stealing scandal is way more than PEDs. And I've heard national writers say the opposite, and I don't agree with that. I really don't.
Alex Wood came out and he said he would much rather face a batter on PEDs than face one that knows what's coming. And as you said, if you're in that box and you know what's coming, that means you get to stay balanced. And hitting is all about timing. Yes. And pitching is upsetting that timing. And when you're balanced, you have good timing. Excuse me. And so if you know its pitch is coming, then nothing is upsetting your timing except your own quirks, your own misses on your swings and things like that. You're not missing a pitch. You're laying off the curveball in the dirt because you already know it's a curveball. So if you recognize it's a curveball low in the zone, you can just let it go because you know that ball's going nowhere but down. You know that ahead of time because you've heard the one banger twos, whatever it is you need to have heard at that point. And that is just so much more of an edge than anything else. You like you said, adding 10, 15 feet, that's one thing. But being able to know what to do with just about every pitch, it's like a gift from God. It really is. And that's what makes this such a big scandal. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I get stealing signs when you're on second base and you peer in and you stick an arm out for one, or you stick both arms out for two, or you put your hand on one knee or your hand on both knees, depending on fastball or off-speed pitch. That's on the other team. If you could decipher their code as your,
that's fine.
Right. It's part of the game. You're not using a camera and a video screen and then relaying it to the box, which might not even be banging, could also be buzzing. So somebody doesn't even know what's happening because you've gotten even smarter because what you're doing is wrong. So you have to invent better ways to hide it. And I mean, if the buzzing thing comes to be true, I mean, that just adds that second layer to it. And that's why, I'm so pissed about AJ Hinch. The passive aggressively, 2 screens, get the F out of here, man. You're a manager. Step up. Tell your team. Any of these guys could have been accountable. Any of these guys over the weekend could have said, yes, we did some wrong things and we're going to try to make it up to you. None of them came out like that. It's like they don't even care. And that, makes it feel even worse that these guys don't even seem to feel remorse over the fact that they cheated. I mean, we both played competitively for a long, long time. And I cannot imagine winning a championship while cheating and feeling good about that championship. The 2 championships in my life I earned. I know we didn't cheat. I know that some crazy ass thing didn't go our way, to win it for us. We earned it. We beat the teams that we needed to beat at the times we needed to be that. You can't feel that way as an Astro player about 2017. You just can't. And it's just, that's to me what makes this the biggest. And I can't believe we're living through this biggest scandal. It's kind of fun that we get to see something like this. And we'll know that 20, 40, 50 years from now, when they talk about the history of baseball, this will be one of those things that's talked about.
Yeah, Ken Burns as a kid, needs to make a documentary about this stuff if he's not going to, because no, this is massive. This is massive. This is way more to me, like you just said eloquently, than the steroid scandal, because that's a personal achievement. This is a team achievement where everybody's cheating together. And yeah, you and I both played baseball to a certain extent into our adulthood, and knowing the timing of the pitch that's coming is everything. That is the root of pitching. The pitching is to upset the timing of the hitter, no matter how strong they are and how good they are. If you upset the timing, they're going to be early or late, and that's all you need. And if you know the speed at which it's coming, that gives you a huge advantage. And if you look at Jose Altuve's splits between home and road in the playoffs, they're pretty telling. And he hit that home run, of course, off of Aroldis Chapman to win the ALCS last year against the Yankees. And what's crazy about it is I remember watching live, and this is before the cheating scandal came out. No one knew about this, at least fans. Now, internally they knew about it because Major League Baseball knew about it in 2017. Manfred actually issued the whole electronics, you can't use electronics, blah, 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 blah. They already had the information, at least superficial information, in 2017. But I think then Major League Baseball was like, okay, we need to keep this quiet, and we need to shut it down. So that's what they did internally. Regardless, this past year, of course, if they had moved to buzzers, which is now, insinuated by Carlos Beltran's supposed niece, and
the evidence is there, though, man.
The evidence is there. Oh yeah,
really strong
with Bregman and Altuve specifically. Altuve, what is a full count pitch or whatever, hits this bomb off of Chapman, one of the best relievers in the game, and Chapman himself is like, and he smiles. He freaking smiles. It's almost like, how the hell did he know that was coming, right? And
or that Chapman knew at that moment that you SOB, you cheating,
yep.
You know what I mean? It could have kind of been like that too. You got the best of me, but only because you knew it was coming.
Because there's a code of conduct with baseball players and many other, professional sports and collegiate sports where it's like, look, we're not going to tell on each other, but I'm going to still try and beat you no matter what.
Yep.
And that's what I think is possible. I think that it is possible Chapman knew what was going on. It was like, well, I don't want to ruin our sport, so I'm not going to say anything, but I'm still going to try to beat you. And he was beaten, and he's like, you son of a bitch, And so he's rounding third, and he's grabbing his shirt and then waving his index finger. Don't tear my jersey off. Don't tear my jersey off. Why? In any rational situation, other than you have 5 nipples, would you not want that to happen? It totally makes sense.
His excuse at the time was his wife didn't like when that happened to him. And then his agent's excuse when this stuff came out was Jose's shy. And then a quick Google search and Instagram search shows hundreds of pictures of Jose Altuve without a shirt. So the dude's not shy. No, the dude ran into the clubhouse, quickly took his jersey and his whatever off, then put the shirt, the ALCS, AL Champions t-shirt on, and came out to celebrate and party with people. That's what happened. If the buzzers were involved, that's what happened. I mean, that's what all the evidence points to. It's circumstantial. It is, because it's just there's no smoking gun here. But, I'm hoping a smoking gun comes out. I really am. I'm not sure if there is one that will. I'm not sure if MLB doesn't have one and they don't want to let it out. It's still, there's so many things. And that's why I'm fascinated to watch this season come about. Like, you got it here. You showed the win totals you listed for all the teams, and the Astros are off the board. Vegas, the desert, doesn't even know what's going to happen with the Astros this year because they don't know what's going on. They don't know if they're going to lose players. They don't know who's going to manage the team. I mean, you don't know what the hell's going on. And it's just it sucks. It sucks that it happened, and I feel bad for all those teams that the Astros beat along the way. I really do. And it just makes me more thankful because I don't think the Giants did anything like that during their 3-5. I think that they did it cleanly. I think any edges they gained were natural edges of any kind. And it makes me really grateful because if I were an Astros fan, I don't think I'd have a team right now. I really don't. I think I would turn my back. It'd be really hard to do this podcast if we were Astros fans.
I totally agree with you, and I thought about that so much. A couple of months ago when this thing broke, it was like, oh my God, if the Giants were accused of this, and I looked at the evidence and I realized they really did this and won a World Series and got to the playoffs in the other seasons, I don't know if I could be a Giants fan anymore. Because that is such a violation of the concept of sportsmanship, all for the I don't know if I could be a fan of that team.
You're breaking the contract that I've made with you to become a fan of the team, to play a sport on the up and up, so that my rooting interest knows that you've put your fair and all into it, your truthfulness. And I know it sounds so hypocritical because of our Bonds perspective, but it's different, to orchestrate.
That was one player, and they didn't win a World Series with him, so it's a little easier to dismiss that. I agree. It's hard, man. It's hard. And, the fact that, like you said, so the LA City Council voted unanimously to petition to the MLB that both World Series titles from 2017 against the Astros and 2018 versus the Red Sox should be bestowed upon the Dodgers. Now, of course, that's silly. It's going to go nowhere. It's a total PR stunt. But did get me thinking, and I was like, well, let's look at the history of this. Now, let's not look at 2019 because the Nationals won it, and of course, we think they were clean, obviously. Now, ironically, they're against the Astros, right?
Yeah, I mean,
one game away.
Tip of the cap to the Nats for winning every game in Houston. Knowing what we know now, they didn't just slay Goliath; they stabbed him through the heart. It's unbelievable.
If Houston was cheating last year in the World Series, thank you Nationals for beating that.
That's amazing.
2018, of course, the Red Sox won it. Now, we have the fallout with Alex Cora. But they faced the Astros in the ALCS. And then, of course, 2017, the Astros won the World Series, but in 7 games against LA. Now, granted, they won in LA on their last game, but there's plenty of John Boy videos, and, if you just go to MLB.com, of the whistling going on in 2017, especially against Clayton Kershaw, when he got bombed. And, he has a horrible history in the postseason, but, him and Ryu, who was it? It wasn't Ryu. It was
Darvish.
Darvish were tarnished by the Astros, much more than their splits would align with. So I understand what LA City Council is doing. They're just doing a PR stunt. It's not going to go anywhere. But I think you and I have to realize that, they also beat the Yankees. They also beat, the divisional series. They also beat the regular season with the A's and the Rangers and whomever else. So, just because the Dodgers may have lost the World Series to the Astros because they cheated doesn't mean that the Yankees couldn't have been the AL, representative, or, you go down the list. So, regardless, this is a messy situation, and I'm so glad the Giants so far.
Yeah, right. I don't think I can't imagine,
because Bonds isn't associated with any one of them, right?
Yep.
So it's like, okay, it's clean, but what happens in the future? Like, what if Altuve and Bregman were wearing wires? And even if that's not conclusively proven with a photograph or whatever, technologically speaking, it is possible for these players to cheat. So I don't know how Major League Baseball does this. Now, they are going to be implementing an automated robot strike zone in a lot of the minor league games this year and in spring training for the major leagues. And I do think that within a couple of years, we are going to see automated strike zones with an umpire sitting back there with an earpiece in. So within 2 seconds, they're going to get the strike or ball, audio, and they'll be like, strike. And I'm for that, by the way. I really am. But, I mean, what do you think else that MLB can do to kind of curb this?
The strike zone thing's interesting. I think we'll go into that another time. I think it's going to change the low pitch.
Yeah, that's true.
I really do. That's my one. I don't know. I'm an old umpire, so I have a lot of thoughts on that. My knees hurt thinking about that, but they feel better. But I mean, you want what's best for the game, but yeah, okay. I don't know. But at least they're bringing it in and it's new. It's funny that the LA City Council wants to do that. I don't know how baseball the way you curb all this cheating stuff is you punish the people involved hard. You make it not worth it. You can't vacate titles. I get it. I get it, Dodgers fans. Not that any of you are listening to this podcast, especially with how long it is. No Dodger fan is still in on this right now. But I get it. I totally get it. I would feel like crap if my team got robbed like that. But I mean, you can't vacate. The A's then could get the division, and then maybe the A's with home field advantage would have been able to do this, and then they would have beaten the Yankees, and then they would have beaten the Dodgers. You can't. It's unfair. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the LA City Council did this though, because Dodgers fans, the hubris of it is the word I used for it. They're so full of themselves as Dodgers fans that they're going to waste city council time on something like this when there are other things in society that they could probably be paying attention to better. But no, they wasted time and taxpayer money to say, hey, we're going to petition a private body to give a title that was unearned to our team. Players don't want anything like that. That's just the fans acting like fans. And we're fans, so we get it. We get it. But that's too much. I hate to sound like I'm on The Price is Right, but that's too much.
Oh, God.
It's been a wild offseason, man. Seriously, this cheating stuff, like the day it was rolling out with the Beltran niece and everything, that was like the best Twitter day of 2020 thus far. And because it was just like all of a sudden in the middle of January, out of nowhere, this baseball news explodes. And everybody's looking at videos and everybody's sharing this and players are weighing in and, things are happening with Cora getting fired earlier in that day, I believe it was, or the day before, or that was the day Beltran got fired. I think it was the day Beltran got fired. Cora was a couple days before. Like, we have not had this much fire in the middle of January over something in a while. And because of this, none of the World Series winning managers from the last decade are still with their team.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, we just turned into
Davey Martinez is
they're
it.
all gone.
Yeah, he's it. Davey is it. Bochy retired, okay? 2011 was who? The Cardinals? Who the hell was that? La Russa? He's gone.
No, it was Matheny,
12,
wasn't it?
It was I think Matheny took over after La Russa. I think La Russa won that last title.
11. Okay, yeah.
Right. So 12 Giants, 13 is
Regardless,
the Red Sox.
They're both gone.
Right. 13 Red Sox, John Farrell, gone. 14 Bochy. 15 the Royals, Ned Yost retired. 16 Cubs, Madden. He's now the manager of the Angels. Yep. 17 Astros, Hinch. 18 Cora, gone. And then 19 Davey.
Wow, that's
bonkers.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's not like 20 years from now. It's like, no, this is now. So
yeah, within the next decade. And they all like either retired or got fired within the last year or two.
Yeah, it's been very, very quick. So, well, everyone, thank you for listening to this long catch-up.
It's a new era.
For episode, 188 of the TortureCast. Yeah, no, we had a lot to catch up on. But you know what? We are now just, what are we? how many days till spring training? 68 or something like that?
Oh yeah, I had it at the top. I think it's 60.
62
Yeah,
till opening
62.
day. 18 days until pitchers and catchers report. This is fantastic. I mean, the Giants are going to have a very interesting season, shall we say. No one expects them to make the playoffs, but we're going to be here. We love this team. We're going to be doing what we can. I'm hoping to attend Media Day here in a couple of weeks and bring you tons of interviews with new players, new coaches. It's going to be different than any other Media Day I have ever been to.
Yeah.
In fact, very uncomfortably so, because I'm not going to know anyone. And it's going to be very interesting to see, what kind of questions I can tease out of these guys. So, look forward to that. And, of course, we're going to be covering the team this season. But, God, Eric, anything else that you have to break? This has been quite a podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a brand new era in Giants baseball. It really is. I look forward to seeing the storylines that come out this year, but I really have no idea what they're going to be. Last year was predestined with Bochy. We knew what certain storylines would be, and then we had the Farhan's inserting who's it's and what's his name into the lineup. So we kind of, had different things, bubble up, but we kind of had an idea what the storylines were. This year we have no flipping idea.
No.
So I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I said it to you earlier. I'm not excited. I am excited for baseball, but I miss being okay, maybe they can win it all this year. I really hope we get that feeling in a couple of years.
I hope so.
Because we don't have that. Yeah, we don't have that this year. So, I guess I'm curious for the 2020 season. Between the cheating scandals and our team being completely a new team, it's just going to be very curious to see what happens this year, to see how the Giants build, to see how the new manager is. To see how certain coaches work with him, like the Wotus and Dunstons, if that has an influence. You see if the veterans have an influence or if they all get flushed out early on. So I guess there's a couple storylines to look for this offseason. Bumgarner coming back to town, all that. But, other than that, we really have no idea what's going to play out just yet. So, the narrative's not even close to being written. The only narrative we know is the Giants are not competing for a title.
Not at all this year. But that said, it's going to be an interesting year. Won't say it's going to be fun, but it will be interesting with lots of story points. It's
baseball, though.
It's baseball, and even in losing baseball, it's fun. So, all right, for Eric, this is Chad signing off for episode 188. We'll see you in a week or two for episode 189. Until then, a boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at TortureCast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.